Good morning. I'm your host, Dave Wescott, and welcome to Teach Me Bees. This morning, I've got Scott the beekeeper, my standard guest. It's almost his 21st birthday, so we're very excited about him aging.
Yep.
And we've got his father-in-law,
Can you actually say that?
the elderly beekeeper,
How's that?
the elderly statesman himself, the beekeeper, who is just playing footsie with me. That's what's going on right now, and he's here to share with us about beekeeping and the Bible and bees as a backyard beekeeper for many years. We're so lucky to have the distinguished Pastor David Lundquist.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me today.
I'm glad you're here.
On a snowy day.
This will be fun.
Yeah.
So how disappointing was it to give him away? I mean, to give your daughter away to him.
He didn't give me away.
I didn't give him away.
I got to receive.
Actually, I did that one time. Kind of crazy.
You gave a man away?
Yeah. It was my nephew who's the golfer. And, we were sitting backstage and actually some of the guys were saying, hey, last week we were at a wedding and the pastor had his mic on and he was trying to keep things light and he was peering out the backside of the stage and the girls were coming down and he kept on saying, man, she's beautiful. Wow, she's beautiful. And everybody in the audience was hearing his comments as the girls were down. Anyway, no, all that to say is that very wedding, I was like freaking out because of that. So I'm clicking on and off the mic to make sure, the mic's on. So I come walking out and the couple come down the aisle. And for whatever reason, I say, so who gives this man to be married to this woman? Rather than
flipping it.
I flipped it. And everybody kind of paused and the father of the bride looks at me. I have no clue that I said that. And he goes, I do? The whole audience cracks up. I don't know if that had happened. And we just kind of continue on. So.
That's awesome. Did you officiate their wedding?
No.
No,
none of my girls wanted me to be dad.
Yep.
They didn't want you to be the pastor in there?
Nah, they wanted me to be dad, which is great. So, yeah.
My dad did part of our deal.
Oh, really?
That's cool.
That's awesome. Anyway, getting back to bees. So
we'll see how long we can keep you there.
Tell us a little bit about your beekeeping experience.
My beekeeping experience. So, yeah, back probably 15, 18 years ago.
So when Scott was born.
Before Scott was born.
All right.
Had a friend who actually was VP or almost a VP manager in Microsoft. And went over to his house and he had just started keeping bees. And actually, one of his neighbors had introduced him to beekeeping. And before that, I was freaked out by bees. I was the typical, bees are bad because, when I was a kid, I got stung by a bee. And anyway, he was like, come on, let's show you the bees. So he kind of pulled me in and he opened up the hive. And, I had my first taste of bees and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And he kind of told me all the details of bees. So he actually asked me, he said, hey, you want to be a beekeeper? And I'm like, I think I want to try this. So he became my, I used to call him my OB1.
Oh, that's cool. Your OB1.
Yeah.
Ralph would like that.
Yeah. A little Star Wars.
OB1.
Yeah. Anyway. Kept bees and he helped me through all of my bee days from learning about hives to he actually helped me with a swarm one time. Had a swarm, my hive swarmed. As a new beekeeper, sometimes that happens. It was actually on 4th of July, so crazy story. I'm doing this event for the church. We're at this park, and my wife goes home during the picnic part of the day, and to get some stuff. And she comes racing back, and she goes, "The bees! They're out of control!" And I'm like going, "What?" So I race home, and sure enough, my bees had swarmed. And the crazy part about it is that my neighbor was having this huge party and he had like 35 or 40 people in his yard. And so the bees are just swarming everywhere. And by that time I had learned that, you don't have to worry about, swarms, stinging or anything like that. So I wade right into the middle of this huge swarm, popped my head over the fence, and all of these people are looking at me like, I'm some crazy guy in the middle of this huge swarm. And they're like, what's going on? And I'm like, don't worry. It's just a swarm and they'll calm down. So after about, 20 minutes, half hour or so, they all coalesce, on a branch. And fortunately, it was just on their side of the fence and up only like 6 feet, 7 feet. And there's this huge, swarm just all bundled around the queen. And so my Obi-Wan and we go racing over there, got a box, we had this huge audience, about 30 or 40 people. And, we get up there, snip the branch. I carefully take the branch and poof, drop the bees in the box, and he covers them up. And, we reintroduce them, in a hive. And,
so this is like 0405.
Yeah, probably
06 maybe.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So this is after the Master Commission days.
Yeah, I think so. I started bees just after that. So
been doing it for a little while.
Yeah, it's been good. I love, I just love the whole concept of bees. Bees and the church
there's some cool history there.
Has some very cool history. Matter of fact, all the way back, if you go back, the Bible talks about the bees quite a bit. We're having a little crazy winter storm here.
That's right. We're in a winter storm. You can hear it banging on the roof. It is slightly unnerving, to be perfectly honest.
A little bit.
What's going on there?
Lack of swarm for that party. Right?
Yeah.
Getting stung by a bee and getting crushed by a tree.
I'll take bee sting every day.
Yeah.
I'm
just wondering, how fast can I get underneath this table?
Not faster than me.
I think if the tree comes down, we're not going to have any.
We're going to be in trouble. We'll see what happens on the podcast.
Anyway, we'll see. Yeah. Anyway,
life and limb. Ralph is in panic mode.
Lights haven't gone out. We're still alive.
We're good. We're good.
Cool. All right. Well, that's fun for the show. So the bees in church.
Yeah. You know what? If you go back in not only church history, but actually Jewish history, fun fact or fun story. Back when if you want to go all the way back to like Gamaliel or Hillel, which were Jewish teachers, more of the Pharisaical tradition, history tells us that in what they call Bet Torah, or House of the Book, or House of the Law, where they would teach kids the law, they would start off by actually taking, on their little slate that they would use for writing, like for writing, they would start off and they would put honey on their little slate.
Interesting.
And what they would do is they would then let the kids basically lick the honey off of the slate, and they would say, God's word is sweeter than honey, and learning and knowledge is sweeter than honey. So they would basically have a very tactile way of introducing learning and learning about God's word by putting honey on their slate. So, all the way back then, they used honey as something that was, attractive, something that was positive. Matter of fact, Augustine would basically said to the clergy of that time that they were to look at the bees as an example of industry and chastity, that their devotion to God should mirror the bees.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I think St. Ambrose may have said something like that too.
Really? I
think so.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Well, I know Augustine also mentioned that in some of his writings. So part of church history has always been around the bees. And matter of fact, if you really look at it, much of bee culture, and even all the way up to the modern hive, has its roots really in the church, which is pretty interesting.
Wow.
Matter of fact, the modern day Langstrath hive comes from a pastor in Philadelphia. So L.L. Langstrath, which we get, the modern hive box with the frames.
Yep.
He was a Philadelphia clergyman back in the 30s or so. And he is the one who developed basically the modern hive and the way we keep bees today, and really has been the source of, the whole, mass industry, of beekeeping today. So, yeah. Matter of fact,
pretty cool.
If you even go back into church history, you can see that, like the Buckfast bee, which is genetics back in England. So what happened is back in England, there was a real problem where varroa mites, the tracheal mites, wiped out much of the bees in England in the late 1800s. And there was a guy named Brother Adam who went to the Buckfast Alley in Devonshire, England, and he he got the job of beekeeping, and he ended up getting into the genetics of bees and developed what we now know as the Buckfast bee variety that is has been popular in England for many years. So yeah,
That's fascinating.
Whether it's genetics or
Does that bee survive the varroa mites?
it is it's been resistant. So there's been a lot of work in genetics that way, but again, started all the way back in
Have you ever been to England?
Yeah, several times.
England is it's very interesting there, huh? A lot of history.
Yeah. All the way, well, obviously to the we're getting the interesting vibes here from
We're getting pelted, but that's
getting
okay.
pelted.
We're in the middle of a storm,
Yeah.
and we're still podcasting. That's how great we're doing here.
Yeah. Anyway, another some other fun facts why the church, interestingly, was so involved with beekeeping was especially when if you start looking at the medieval church, was that the wax was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because beforehand, people would use oil candles, put off a lot of soot. And so when they realized that bee wax burned very clean, the church really jumped into the whole idea of gathering that bee wax for candles, because around the 4th century, it started off that candles were just a light, they were just a practical use.
Yeah.
But it began, around the 4th and 5th centuries, they started basically, pulling in that light into the services, talking about Jesus being the light of the world. And because bee candle wax burned so clean, they made that the standard candle for the cathedrals, primarily because of, practical again, in that they didn't have to clean up all of the soot. You guys have all probably had, wax candles that turn your bedroom walls black. You take a picture off the wall if you ever burn candles a lot, and you can see the soot on the walls. Bee candles.
I don't know how many times you experienced that.
I'm not the candle guy at home. That's my wife.
I have, because my girls, probably my daughter Celine,
Yep.
used to burn candles in their room all the time, and you'd take a picture off the wall, and you're like, wow. There's a lot of
Girls do burn candles all the time, don't they?
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
There's always candles going.
Always.
I will say some of them smell pretty good though. I'll give them that. Like some of them are like very
yesterday
refreshing.
my wife put on Instagram snow day with candles, and she did her little tea lights and everything.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, well.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I think that if I was living by myself, I would do no candles.
Yeah,
Just
probably not.
Embrace it.
I don't know.
I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah. No. So with bees and beekeeping historically, like I know that some different traditions of monks, I don't know if all did, were beekeepers, right?
Yeah, big.
And
Yeah.
they would not only would they do candles, but they would be able to sell the honey. They would make mead with it and sell
Honey
it.
mead, man.
And that's a way that they would generate income, right, for their monastery and
Nuns
such, and
too.
be able to give. And yep.
Nuns too. There's a big one actually up in Arlington, I think.
Is there?
There's a big convent, and their whole convent is beekeeping.
That's
didn't know
very
that.
cool. That's very cool.
Well, I should check them.
I've been on a tour.
Really?
I will.
It was Marysville, Arlington, but it
We'll
was
have
a
to look
long
into
time
that.
ago. We went on a tour for school, and we came up there in the little bus or whatever, and they've got a gift shop that's got candles and all sorts of things, and a nun took us around and showed us the whole thing.
You gotta have
That's
a nun.
super cool. We'll look into that. We'll look into
No,
that.
it was actually amazing. It was actually amazing, and
It's a really cool experience.
they sell Christmas candles, and I think we bought some, Christmas candles and some different things. But I'll never forget the experience, of going to the convent. They do bees.
You think that's one of the reasons why you wanted to start a company, bees?
No. No, my interest in bees actually really came from your story of bees.
Really?
You inspired me into the bees. So actually, I'll just say it's all your fault.
Oh, it's all my fault. Okay.
But,
That's right. Here's
see
the
how
source of the
see how
trouble.
that's easily blamable?
Yeah. Well,
No, bees are fascinating. I loved your story about the bees. I think I love the bees. Just the idea of keeping the bees. I love the idea of doing good for the environment. And I also love flowers.
Yeah.
I love flowers.
Pollination.
I love gardens. I love fruit trees. I love all of those things. And since bees pollinate those things, it's like just a natural connection because I love gardening. It's one of my favorite things. It's relaxing. It's, I don't know, just good for my mind. So I really enjoy it. I even like pulling weeds. I like to go out in the yard and just pull the weeds. It's good. So bees are kind of a natural correlation to that. And then honey is so good. And then it's good for the kids to learn. And it's a renewable resource. And so, I mean, there's so many benefits to bees. And there's so many amazing things that happen from bees, whether it's candles or it's wax or it's, whatever. But it's also, bees are kind of like a pet, like you have to take care of them. And you have to love them, and you have to invest in them, and you have to nurture them, and you have to care for them. And at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that you control their life in your hands.
Yeah.
You can kill them.
Yeah.
You can neglect them, but it's a responsibility. And I think that it's a really cool responsibility because it's exhilarating. The first time you put the bee suit on and you have the hive open, and they're buzzing around you. It's like you said when you were a kid, you said, hey, oh man, I was afraid of bees. I got stung, whatever, like we all go back to that moment of the first time we got stung. That actually should just be a standard question on the show. When was the first time you got stung? But the truth of the matter is, like, you remember,
sure.
It leaves a mark.
Yeah.
And then, you've probably seen someone who got stung who was allergic to bees at some point.
Yep.
I'll never forget my friend Nate got stung and his hand turned 5 or 6 times the size of his hand.
Wow.
He blew up like his whole, I've never seen it like it. Like it's Interstate Marshmallow Man. And, he had to have the doctors like, Benadryl, get Benadryl in him, take him to the hospital, all that. But okay, cool. But bees are it's a fascinating thing, and it's good. And I was praying, because since we're talking about church, like my big thing was like, we live on this farm out here, this little ranch farm, small, but still it is what it is. It has acreage. And so like my prayer was always like, Lord, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with this land? What are we going to do with this land? Lord, I want to be a good steward of the land. I want to use the land for something good. And so it just kind of like miraculously happened, that you were talking about bees. And then I kind of got excited about bees. And then it was kind of like, oh man, this is awesome to do with the acreage. And then, your son-in-law was interested in bees. He's sitting right here, Scott the beekeeper. And
hello.
And, he's almost 21. And so like, it's a big decision. I'm just kidding. He's like 28, just so you know. 21-year-old couldn't grow that beautiful beard.
That's right.
But so, you know, like, and he was interested in bees. And so it was like, man, what an awesome connection. And then we met another beekeeper, Tim, who helped us get some stuff going. And so like all of these things just aligned, but the prayer for several years, I think was like, Lord, what am I going to do with these farms? I don't want this acreage to go to waste. I don't want it just to sit here. I want to be a good steward of the acreage.
Sure.
So part of this whole bee thing is trying to be responsible with what God has given me.
Yeah, good steward.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be the man who is given a talent and then buries it. And then the master comes back and says, what have you done? And he says, I know you're a hard man, and so I buried it. And he says, you foolish, blah, blah, blah. You didn't even put it in the bank to earn interest. And so like, I feel like God has given us this plot of land.
Yeah.
So I feel like we need to be utilizing it. It just can't sit here. And so, you know, taking the dive into bees and becoming, you know, a beekeeping company, owning Honey for Hope, producing honey, doing pollination, like,
yeah,
this is all really to glorify God and to say, God, you've given us something, let's do it. And then on top of that, our mission at Honey for Hope is to take the profit and
give it back.
give it back to charity. So like, we're actually trying to do God's work and Christian work, and we're trying to do good things. So I think bees in church and bees in Christianity and bees in beliefs, even though we joke around on the show and have a good time, like it, for us, I think it mirrors very close to what you've shared about bees in church.
Yeah.
And so it's,
let me,
it's cool.
I don't know how much time we got, but let me read just a little liturgy. My son-in-law.
What is a liturgy for those who may not know?
Liturgy is just basically a prayer. It's a reminder. It's bringing back focus on the source, that God is our source. And so, one of my son-in-laws gave me this book of liturgy or prayers for Christmas. And I happened to flip through it, and there was a liturgy for keeping bees.
Really?
And I thought, it'd be fun to kind of close, because I think it's beautiful the way this prayer goes. So can I read?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it starts off together. We're supposed to say, we thank you, O God, for the blessing of bees, for the wonder of their work, for the sweetness of their offering, and the delight of their harvest. We thank you, O God, for the industry of the hive, which is like a picture of the kingdom of heaven, always at work in 10 million places unseen, which is so true. All around the world, God's kingdom is working. We thank you for the small comedy of the creatures, for the humor of their constant severity, for the buzz and the bumbling of bees in flight, for the sight of bees bending slender stalks to harvest in the bloom, their feet shod with bristling boots of gold, their backs fuzzed with bright yellow dust, that is the color of joy made visible. So varied are your creatures, O God, so wise your creation. For the blessing of bees we thank you, for their bright and varied stripes, for the wisdom of their queen, for the potent sting you have granted them to guard the life of the hive against the harm of the nature now fallen and hostile. We thank you for imbuing them with ingenuity of architecture, to build the perfect geometry of the comb, a golden cathedral that cannot be accounted for by accident. We thank you, O God, for the miracle of bees in their labor, for the tireless industry. May it inspire us to serve. For their generosity, may we also produce enough to share. Bless these, your creatures, which you have given into the service of your image bearers. May they be fruitful. Bless these, your creatures. May their honey be plentiful and sweet. May they find the field of clover and wild bloom, a bountiful harvest of nectar, that we might gladly share the abundance of their labor, delighting in the substance of small pleasures you have provided us through them. Bless these bees, O God, and bless their keepers, Scott, for all creatures are you, bee and keeper alike. Together may our co-labor resound to your praise and glory. Amen.
Oh, that's a beautiful
great.
prayer.
Yeah, I love it because there's a lot of truth there. There's, God's given us these little crazy creatures. They're kind of funny in that they
It's
kind
crazy
of
how they work.
how they work, how they do their little waggle dance to tell everybody where things are at, how they are covered with pollen when they come into the hive, how the queen directs them.
The structure, the pheromones, how
All of that works. How the incredible, beauty of the honeycomb and how that hexagonal structure is just perfect for what they are creating.
Yeah, it's
honey
pretty
is.
awesome.
It is pretty amazing.
It's pretty cool. That's an awesome little prayer. Where is that found?
Well, this book here, every moment holy, is volume 1 by McKelvey. So yeah,
Every moment
holy.
Yeah.
Great little book.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That reminded me of my parents made me do Toastmasters when I was
When you were
young.
That's awesome.
And one of the things that we had to do is we had to do this competition
Mhm.
where you had to recite some kind of poem like that, and they gave it to you. And man, this thing was long like that. That was like a couple of minutes, And it's like, and I can remember just practicing it over and over and over and over and over and over and taking so long. And then I remember the moment when I had to stand up in front of all those people and I had to recite this thing back. I hated every single minute of it. I absolutely
probably nailed it though, right?
dreaded and hated. I mean, I did it. Yeah. I don't think I had any problems with it.
How old were you when you did that?
It must have been 11 or 10.
Wow.
10 or 11.
That's great.
Young.
Yeah.
I mean, I was young. That's why I didn't like it. Because the thing is that most of the kids in the class were like 15, 16, 17, So I was like this young kid. And when you have those big age gaps, you never really fit in.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make you feel as comfortable. When you don't feel as comfortable, you don't do as good.
Yeah.
Or maybe you do good. I don't do as good, but that's the story. That reminded me of that, but that's a very cool little bee prayer.
Yeah.
Liturgy poem.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us here on the show today. Do you have any closing words, thoughts for our audience as we begin to wrap things up?
Yeah, I would say that if you are a beekeeper, I would take a moment as you're in the hives and pause and pray and acknowledge God. There's a famous verse in Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, but acknowledge God in all your ways and he will direct your path. It's one of those times there, we just, as beekeepers, we do need to see things that sometimes, we're helping these little creatures out. We just need to be able to see it. We need to be able to see God's design, his glory, and use that, to inspire others and hopefully draw us near to God.
And we need to be able to solve problems.
Yeah.
We need to be able to identify trends and patterns.
Yeah, exactly.
And we got to protect the hive.
Yep. So
the hive is very fragile.
Just pause and acknowledge God in your beekeeping.
I like that. That's a good thing.
Thanks for joining us.
Scott, any final thoughts?
Beekeeping's pretty cool, and it's got a rich history. If you don't know the history of beekeeping, which we talk about in spurts here, I would pick up maybe Beekeeper's Bible. There's a nice section on beekeeping history, and just learn about it. It's very fascinating, and it's one of the oldest traditions, the oldest things that humans still do actively. So it's very cool. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
It's got a rich history, so it's great.
That was an awesome show. Listen, we're here every Thursday. Come check us out. If you like this show, give us a like, give us a share. I'm Dave Wescott, your host. Follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, anywhere where it's social. We're hanging out and we're having a great time. This was a fantastic episode. Enjoy it. And check out the book, Every Moment is Holy, if you want to get a copy of that blessing, that prayer that was shared today. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
It was great to have you on the show.
Appreciate it.
Oh, that's a wave.
How's that?
That's a wave.
That's a son-in-law thing.
I know.
Thanks, everybody.
Before it got awkward, we're ending the show. We'll see you guys later.